Welcome to the first concert conversations for the 2022-2023 season of the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra. I am so excited that we get to kick it off today with the music director and conductor of the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra, Mark Russell Smith. And sir, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back.
You know, it really is. There's such great excitement about coming back together and hearing live performance. And boy, we're going to start off with a piece that just has to be experienced live. But before we get to that, I did want to talk with you a little bit about this remarkable season, which is telling an incredible story and includes so many landscapes along the way, but is bookended by these great pillars of the symphonic repertoire. If you don't mind giving us a little insight into the creative process of this season.
Wow. Well, I wish I had I do have a brochure right here. What do you know?
Oh.
So that's good. It just happened to have it here on my office floor. Well, I really love this season, and it's interesting because Brian Baxter and I were talking yesterday. You know, Iowa Public Radio does one of our concerts, you know, in the Orchestras of Iowa series. And so they're asking me to choose one of the six. And it's like, you know, to choose one that captures our essence is not possible, because what I love about the Quad City Symphony and what I love about the great musicians of the Quad City Symphony is their wonderful flexibility. I mean, we play German repertoire, dare I say, really, really well, and very stylistically, like the Beethoven and Mahler 1, to which you were referring. But we also, you know, we have a world premiere of Michael Abel's Guitar Concerto, and we have Brahms Symphony, and we have a Shostakovich Violin Concerto, and we have Baroque music, and we have music fit for a king, we have Doherty, we have Bruch. I mean, it's really just, there's just great variety in this season. And I think each program stands clearly on its own, but also just the variety, you know, it's not overture, concerto, symphony, you know, like a lot of typical programs can be. So I'm especially proud of this season, and I really like the variety. Again, well, look, we've been trying to do Beethoven 9 since, you know, fall of 2020, because, and I'm sure you were going to ask about this, but we were attempting to celebrate the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth, and that would have been in actually December of 2020. And originally, this Beethoven 9 was planned for the fall of 2020, which couldn't be. Of course, we had to totally retool our programming and have some concerts without audience, and COVID obviously changed everything. So the big news is we're back. The big news is, man, we want people to come back and fill the hall, because the orchestra is playing better than ever. And we have a season where you're going to love every concert. Every concert is incredibly different from the other, but you're really going to love every concert.
Well, I would have to agree, just looking at it on paper. But what I want to really drive home for our audiences is the importance of seeing this first concert live. If you've never experienced Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, it's a singular work, and that's not just you or I talking. That's, I think, ratified most eloquently by two little historical factoids about it, which are fairly recent considering when this piece was originally performed. One is to celebrate the ending of the Iron Curtain. There was this massive, beautiful concert played in Berlin, very close to where the wall had ripped that city, that nation, that continent in two. And Leonard Bernstein was invited to conduct, and there was really never any question as to what would be played. It would be Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with Friedrich Schiller's Ode to Joy. All of that trying to embody the feelings of generations of people who had been frustrated in their, you know, longing for freedom, and then that suddenly opened up. Secondly, and much more prosaically, I think, is the fact that the now past technology, but once cutting edge technology of compact discs, that whole technology was built around having something that could contain the roughly 70 minutes or so of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, so that folks who worked at music stations like WVIK didn't have to sit there and flip right in the middle of with an LP, but could go right on with a CD. So,
Right.
I mean, it's not just us talking, but what are some of your own impressions, Maestro, about why this work is singular in its iconic
Well,
style?
I mean, it is always an occasion. It's always an occasion. A performance of Beethoven 9 is a special occasion. And I think it's because I think the struggle that Beethoven was portraying and the ultimate release and the ultimate celebration is so palpable, it's the humanity that Beethoven pours into every single movement, is very clear and really goes from his heart to our hearts. And so it's a direct, I mean, there's just direct communication and there's direct communication of all of just unbelievable beauty of the third movement, of melody spinning and of inner peace, and then of angst in the first movement and of great tension in the second movement, and then the struggle to continue to express, and we have the trial and error of the fourth movement, like, how can I do this? Finally is the introduction of the human voice and the words of Schiller that take us over the top, and it's the tune that everybody knows and loves. And so it's an accomplishment. It's the kind of Mount Everest accomplishment of one of the great geniuses that everybody knows, that everybody recognizes, the genius that Beethoven had. And so I think I'm not celebrating that struggle, but being empathic and understanding that struggle and having that music communicate in such a direct way, and having the release and the positivity at the end. I mean, that's why it's an occasion, and that's why the piece was so puzzling for people at the beginning, and that's why it's become just one of the icons of Western music.
Well, and on that note, when you talk about this being sort of a pinnacle, it is certainly a high peak to attain for an organization. Not everybody can do this, and it requires great cooperation beyond the symphony. And you're absolutely right. The symphony is sounding as good as anybody's ever heard it. But it's not just the symphony. You're needing to reach out to others, and you can't do that on the drop of a dime.
Right. And the Augustana Choir, the Oratorio or the Oratorio Society, these community members and these students. I mean, that's also what makes it an occasion. I mean, I have to tell you, as a conductor, to preside and to be on that stage and being surrounded by, the first three movements, the chorus is sitting there listening, and they're getting as involved in the symphony as we are, and as hopefully the audience is too. And so, that just adds to the energy on stage and to the electricity, and also I think adds to the trajectory of the symphony, and how ultimately, when the voices are finally raised, how powerful that is and how cathartic it is.
And another argument for people to hear this live, because if you're there in the hall as this energy is building, and that's why it's imperative that the members of the chorus are there through the entire work, this energy is building, and this feeling, this spirit is permeating everything. And that goes for us as audience members too. I sometimes see, where people put up a viral video of maybe a flash mob doing the fourth movement or something. Yeah, it's cute. But if you've been there for the whole journey,
right,
it's really extraordinary.
Right.
What about some of those other logistical considerations you need? I mean, it's been a while since we got this many people on a stage.
Well, it has. As a matter of fact, I was rehearsing the chorus very recently, and on the stage of Centennial Hall, where that's where the rehearsal was. And the last time we were here was February of 2020 doing the Verdi Requiem. And man, and that was great. And they were, the whole chorus was like, yeah, man, yeah, we remember that. But it seems like, a lifetime ago, in a way. But then again, here we are doing what we do, and here we are, thank God, able to be back doing what we do and singing together, and worrying less about about getting sick or getting each other sick, that thankfully that we can worry a little bit less about it. We still worry, and we still take precautions, but I think it's being very, very well managed. And so it does seem like a lifetime ago, but to be able to be on stage in close quarters and to be singing, and not singing through masks, is just very welcome, and very, I mean, it's just a real positive for everybody, I think.
Well, and we're going to spend some more time with that, but I also want to talk about the other part of the program. And I should point out that the huge budget of the Quad City Symphony Orchestra's Concert Conversations production team painted this lovely backdrop to our soundstage. It's a massive soundstage, but that does depict the theater at the Corinthian Gate, the Kärntner Tor, which was the venue for the first performance of Beethoven's Ninth. It no longer stands, but it was a lovely venue by all accounts. And just as lovely, I'm sure, as the Adler and Centennial on the inside. But we're doing something, I think, extremely exciting, as if the Ninth weren't exciting enough, and that is hearing a work that's never been performed, to my knowledge, in this community. Jonathan Bailey Holland's work that it was kind of, well, it's called Ode, and it really owes its existence to this massive shadow of the Ninth Symphony. How did this come on your radar screen, Maestro?
Well, it was Brian Baxter, our executive director. It's the age-old problem that conductors face. What do you do with the Ninth? Because what do you do in addition to the Ninth? Not what do you do with the Ninth, but it's not quite long enough for a full evening. It could be, but it's also nice to have something, to start, and so what to do exactly. As a matter of fact, in my conducting classes at the University of Minnesota, we have repertoire quizzes, or we talk about how to program, and that is absolutely one of the questions. Give me 5 different openers for Beethoven 9, and so Jonathan Bailey Holland was the composer in residence for a while with the Cincinnati Symphony, and the Cincinnati Symphony charged him with that exact problem. Said, we want a companion piece. We want a 21st century expression, reaction, companion piece to Beethoven 9. And that's, it's like saying to a painter, could you paint something and we'll hang it next to the Mona Lisa, So, and he was like, oh, it's like, oh, thanks a lot. It's like only the greatest work of Western art. And, so what do you do? But it really got him kind of ruminating and thinking. And so he takes snippets, he quotes things, he reacts to the gestures of Beethoven, the kind of suspendedness that Beethoven portrays in the first movement, the incredible angst at the beginning of the fourth movement, the tension and all that. The march, this time it's a march, kind of like a marching band march, though, like with a drum set and a very kind of very hip-hoppy march, which is, Beethoven had a Turkish march and we have this hip hop march. And so it's his honest reflection and reaction to this great piece of Western art. And it's cool. So it includes the chorus. The chorus, however, never sings any words. It's a color thing. So they're oohing and aahing and creating colors. There's a lot of suspense, a lot of anticipation. I mean, he wrote it to precede the Ninth Symphony, so there's already that built-in anticipation. But it's a really cool work. It's in 3 movements. First movement and then the second and third movement go together, but it is absolutely meant to go right into the Ninth Symphony. And so when we do it, there won't be an intermission. We'll play the Holland piece and then go direct at the very end of the Holland goes right into the beginning of Beethoven Ninth Symphony. Yeah. So it's a bit of a sit. It's a bit of a long sit, but I think very interesting. And these are the questions that we are asking, we classical musicians. How is what we do relevant in the 21st century? And how do we make it relevant? Are there barriers? Are there perceptions that keep people away from our music? Is there whatever? And so to to have a reaction to a classic work like this, and to have a modern version of that, and to have some hip hop, and to have like colors and kind of movie music stuff and like drama, it really, I think it does exactly that. It's saying how is Beethoven 9 relevant? Well, for Jonathan Bailey Holland, here's what it meant, and here's how he reacts, and here's how he kind of riffs from Beethoven 9, and then we have the actual Beethoven 9. And so hopefully it gives some relevance. Hopefully it gives a contemporary composer, African-American composer, more opportunities to hear his wonderful work performed. He's written not just this, but many, many things. He's now head of Carnegie Mellon, the music school at Carnegie Mellon. So that's a great, wonderful job for him. But very prolific composer. And I think this is the first time we played a work of Jonathan Bailey Holland in the Quad Cities.
Yeah, that's my surmise too, because I don't recall it, but he is prolific as it barely begins to cover it, how many things he's doing, not just in terms of composition, but these residencies, his academic life, as you mentioned, Carnegie Mellon. But he's also a product of Curtis. I mean, had you had a chance to work with him in the past at any point?
No.
This is
He's too young. I'm too old. Our paths never crossed at Curtis. I go back and conduct there fairly regularly, and it just never worked out. So I had heard of him, and actually I conducted in the summer, and the conductor the week before I was conducting did a piece of his, and so we just haven't crossed paths. And so yeah, it's a Curtis connection, but not like the usual ones, So
right. Well, you did mention the fact, and I think it's we can even build on it a little bit. Not only is this a very important voice in American music, but at this time, I mean, it's an African-American voice. It turns out that he was raised in Flint, Michigan, which has been part of the national conversation about issues related to equity and justice and that sort of thing. And then just recently, we've had Jackson, Mississippi, and things that are happening with their water supply, and are there justice issues at stake? So I think I just would like to salute you and the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, because you've always done this great job of giving us these things that just we need, of course, to hear. I feel sorry for smaller communities, and many larger. We need to hear Beethoven's Ninth from time to time, but just as much, we need to hear the things we've never heard before.
Exactly.
And so by making this mixture, it's a very powerful thing for our communities. And the reason I wondered if maybe you had worked with him, because as I indicated, he's done so many residencies and he's gotten so many grants and fellowships. He has been in Minnesota for a while and working on some things, and hopefully we'll someday maybe even get him to come.
I would love that. I would love that. I would really like that a lot. But I mean, we were talking earlier about the season and about kind of that, we need Beethoven 9, but we also need new pieces. And if you look, I mean, this is yet another tenet of how I like to program is, I mean, absolutely, there's a lot of new stuff, but there's also a lot of tried and true. And I think the mix works really well. And it's not random. I mean, they comment on each other. We have Music Fit for a King, which is so then we have Duke Ellington, and we have Johann Strauss, and we have Michael Dougherty, because the king is Elvis. There's a piece about Elvis, and so there's kitsch, and so and then we have William Walton, Henry V. Anyway, so we have different composers looking at the same thing, or we have pieces that comment on each other, familiar pieces. I mean, we have the Fierce Females program, where we have Ferenc, and we have this incredible pianist playing Prokofiev, and we have Joan Tower, and we have Florence Price, and so anyway, I really, it's hard to choose one program of the season that sums up who we are, and that's good, actually. I think that's good, because we are so many things, we're so many different things, and I think we do all those things pretty well.
And you do. And before we get back into the meat of the program, you gave us a bit of a tease on that Iowa public broadcasting offer. Did you ever settle on something?
Not yet. No, it's just not. We're debating. Brian and I are going back and forth, because I have one idea, and they said, "Well, what about this and this?" And of course, he brings good points, And then what did we choose last year? Well, we did the Bruckner Eighth, which was something that maybe we do really well. So maybe we should show a different side of what we do. Anyway, I don't know. I have to figure it all out.
Well, it is a tremendous thing that Iowa Public Radio does for symphonies across Iowa. But of course, we can always turn our friends on all over the world to wvik.org
Right.
after every concert. We continue to
Right.
do that too.
Right.
So
Exactly.
picking back on Beethoven, I may have heard your eyes roll at this observation I've made in the past, but there's just something about Beethoven's later symphonies. And yeah, I'm correlating here, projecting into the fact that he was largely without hearing at this time. But you get into the points of deepest emotional connection, and it's simultaneously physical, because it's like timed to your heartbeat, and you're hearing these, sometimes plodding, sometimes dancing, but it's within the pace of a fairly normal heartbeat, not racing, not sleeping, but there's just something about that, being in tune with the physical as well as the spiritual side of things. And I just wonder if you have any observations like that of the evolution of Beethoven as the symphony writer, this being basically the pinnacle.
Well, Beethoven was always striving. I mean, at the very beginning, he was striving to like loose the chains of classicism and all the rules. And he did that very early on with, the Third Symphony, with the Eroica. But he's always pushing the envelope. And, as the symphonies progress, I mean, they're different areas of focus. I mean, the seventh is about rhythm and about, it's the dance symphony, and the eighth is a little more neoclassical. It's really hard to make kind of sweeping general statements, except I would say he is always pushing the envelope for expressive purposes. I mean, he is getting beyond the notes, and it's not about, and of course, the structure is amazing, and the way things are put together, and the way he works with the Fifth Symphony, with how it's all built is amazing. But those are just the tools. That's just the grammar to get him to the ultimate expression. And I think this Ninth Symphony is, it's the culmination of that for sure. And and it's really overt. I mean, his struggle is really overt. He's not, especially in the fourth movement. I mean, he did something that no composer has done, is like reflect back. He quotes himself from the first movement, quotes himself from the second movement, quotes himself from the third movement. It's like saying, no, 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 no. Like, we've done that, and now what can we do? And so it's a very didactic lesson, but so genuine and so heartfelt and so unique that it doesn't come across as like a lesson. It comes across as just the incredible art that it is, and the struggle of a great artist to express the inexpressible. And we hear that struggle, and we feel that struggle. And we could analyze how the first movement's constructed, and we can analyze the fugue of the second movement, and double theme and variations of the third movement. But like, again, those are all vehicles of expression. And what's the most important thing is the cumulative effect, is how those three movements lead us really organically in a way to what happens in the fourth movement.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a very unfair question, but it's based in part on that on that observation. Imagine for a moment that, for whatever reason, the fourth movement didn't exist. You're right, and as we've already talked about, this notion of building everything towards that peak is an important role that the first, second, and third movements play. But imagining for just a moment the fourth movement didn't exist, what would be your highlight from the remaining or first three movements?
Well, I think the third movement, but see, the thing is, the three work together. Like, if you take the first movement away, then the third movement isn't what it is, and same. So, that's because it's a perfectly constructed piece.
Yeah.
But the third movement, the rap on Beethoven sometimes was he can't really write a great melody. It's about rhythm, but he's not like a Schubert where melodies just pour out of him, But like, in this third movement, it's simple, but so incredibly heartfelt, and especially the second theme. So we have two themes that he varies. And so the first theme is this slow moving. He says sotto voce, which means like it's not a big overt espressivo thing. It's certainly not pale, but the expression is an inward expression. And then the second theme opens up with scale with scalular tunes that just like reach and strive, and it's so beautiful. And it's in a range. It's for the second violins and the violas, and it's in a range that's singable. It's not super high. It's not super low. It's like right where everybody sings. And so it's just like that is the most human. That for me is one of the most human parts of Beethoven's writing. Period. That melody. And it's, you can analyze the melody. It's not that complicated, but just the orchestration of it and the trajectory of it and just where it sits, it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love conducting that bit.
Well, thank you for taking an impossible question, and thank you for choosing the third, because I'll be very honest with you. Within the Fifth Symphony, for my money's worth, the third movement does it for me. I just love the third movement of the Fifth Symphony, and that's going to be just about all I need. That said, that aside, for just a moment, you mentioned his iconoclastic nature as a composer. And if anybody's watching this who will be seeing us shortly in the hall, act surprised. But one of my favorite descriptions of Beethoven actually came from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the great writer, the novelist to Schiller's poet, who described a meeting with Beethoven and said he's quite an unlicked bear. And to call somebody an unlicked bear, I think it sums up a lot of what we know about Beethoven in those years. All right, so we're going to have this extraordinary experience together. We're going to start with the music of Jonathan Bailey Holland, and we're going to go right into Beethoven. But as you said, this season as a totality, if you're looking at, oh my goodness, look at these two goalposts, Beethoven 9, Mahler 1, you're missing some of the most beautiful landscapes that you're ever going to see during the course of the rest of the season. But without giving away too much, what about November? There's some exciting stuff happening in November as well.
The music fit for a king.
Yeah, that's the king, right? And you mentioned William Walton. And the reason I wanted to come back to that for just a minute, for your own purposes, if no one else's, but the film version that he wrote that for was the film version starring Laurence Olivier. Right. And it's important to remember that was produced while England was very much on a razor's edge. The war, when they started work on that, was not going well for England. And when you watch the film, it's interesting to note there's no one in that film who's between the ages of 18 and 35, except for a couple of people like Olivier, maybe. And there are other people in there who are clearly wounded in the war. And, it's a fascinating statement. And I think that gets lost sometimes. So when you listen to, if you get a chance to see the film, it's great. But to hear the music, it's also a product of a time when England, was still a blessed plot, but its future was very much in doubt. Right. Yeah. Right. All right.
Programs like, we have, we'll talk about it next time, I'm sure. But, we have, again, a look at music fit for a king, whatever that means. And of course, it means a lot of things. And there are plays on words, and there are different kinds of kings. And, so anyway, but yeah, obviously we have the big cornerstones, and you want to start big and you want to end big, but it's great stuff's happening in the middle. The December, February, March also,
Well, and I really want people to go to qcso.org, because, you and I get to talk about the Masterworks series, but there is so much vital programming that's going on between the Masterworks concerts that you're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't check out some of those options. And we've already had the guitarist who will be featured in December, right?
Correct. He was great. That was a wonderful concert
at the RME. And so really pay close attention to that. We will be wrapping things up here in just a moment, but because this is our first chance to be together in a few months, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, Maestro.
Oh, I don't know. We need, we need people to fill the hall. I mean, that's what we need. And I think it takes, I mean, we have such a devoted audience. And, you know, I mean, this is something Brian Baxter and I talk about, and we talk about really openly. It's like, you know, we need people to bring people, because you know, it's a unique experience. You know, putting on a CD of Beethoven 9 is great, but like, it is not like being there. And concerts are never the same. You know, I mean, it's experiencing it live and hearing, feeling the energy and seeing the devotion of the musicians on stage is, I mean, there's nothing like it. And you leave a changed person, and it's really not hyperbole to say. And so, you know, this is the year where, you know, it's post COVID. Hopefully people are more comfortable coming back. You know, we want halls to be filled. And so, you know, we're doing everything we can. I mean, the programming is really attractive, and certainly the way our musicians are playing and the soloists and everything, you know, there's no reason to not come. And so, you know, I'm just really excited, and I'm looking forward to a full hall on Beethoven 9.
Well, I'll see your invite and I'll raise you. I mean, this is going to sound amazing in the Adler, but recall that Centennial Hall was actually designed acoustically for this combination
Right.
of orchestra and voice. I mean,
Right.
for oratorios, really,
Right.
but it's really going to shine on the Sunday concert as well.
Absolutely.
But for now, I'm just so incredibly grateful that we get to do this again for another season. Our music director and conductor, Mark Russell Smith, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank our friends at Wells Fargo Advisors, Chris Connolly, for helping to support this series, which has come to mean so much to folks in helping them enjoy the concert. But for now, friends, I want to also thank you for your time in getting ready for this concert and your time to come when you join us, the Quad City Symphony Orchestra, for the opening of its 2022-2023 Masterworks season. Maestro, thank you very much.
Thank you. A great pleasure.